Good morning, Edmentum, Illinois. We are here this morning with Dr. Ken Wallace, Superintendent of Maine Township High School District 207. We are so thrilled to have you here today, Ken. And he is going to be sharing with us a little bit about what he has currently been reading. So do you want to get us started with telling us what it is?
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here, and I've actually just completed my Administrator Academy for the year, and the option locally at the North Cook Service Center was Ibram Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. And as many of the listeners will be aware, that book and that particular author has been one that has been identified by different groups as sort of targeting and asking districts if they've got any material from this author. But having actually read the book, what I would be absolutely comfortable saying is it's a must read. And Kendi takes a really academic and research basis for all of the statements and claims that he makes. And including one of the things that I think I like the best about it was Kendi is incredibly self-reflective. So he does a really good job of admitting just his own bias, his own perceptions, his own racism, which I think is a really disarming way to come at the topic, a topic that, is, at the forefront right now of controversial topics. But he addresses it with actual research, actual history, and facts. And I think whatever you're dealing with in this world, whether it's a simple subject or a complex subject, coming at that subject from empirical evidence is the best way always to come at it. So I've just been super impressed with this book, and it's on my recommend read list, absolutely. Even for people, and maybe especially for people who are skeptical of the topic, I would really invite you to have a read, get the audiobook if you want to, but it's a very accessible book, and I think it has the chance, I think, to at least better inform the conversation than someone who hasn't read it. So that's my current read.
Ken, what would you say is the biggest, the most important thing that resonated with you from that book as a superintendent of a large district?
Well, it confirms my experience in education, and it's so much of what really, depending on your viewpoint of it, whether it's racist policies or opportunity gaps or things like that, it's how much policy and practice really do inform and frankly perpetuate a lot of the things that happen in this country. And also looking at the topic from someone else's point of view, which I think is always an important thing. If you go back and if you studied rhetoric, that's a really important strategy to come at any topic from. So I think just the understanding the structure, because as a superintendent, I can personally attest to having identified, very specific structures within my own district that were segregation structures. And they weren't just segregation by race, but they were segregation by income, which often overlaps with race, but not always. It's not exclusive. Most of this stuff is not exclusive. So it's the understanding of how policy and the folks that are interested in perpetuating that policy, what's their self-interest. And one of the points that Kendi makes is that a lot of racist policies really stem not from hate, but from self-preservation and self-interest. And sometimes and often, in fact, they're economic based. And so the history of this country is filled with that. So I think for me, it's just the confirmation, but also commitment to continue to look at how practices and policies impact the subject.
Ken, I'm a big fan of your reading your work on career readiness, and then in these topics of equity, how are you fusing those in Maine?
So within our district, and I've said this to external audiences plenty of time, I'm privileged to get to talk about career advisement program. In our district, every one of our kids has an individual career plan, and it's very detailed. It's somewhat of a spin on the Project Lead the Way research, where we actually get kids in the field. When we started this work, we had about 70 business partners. Today we have 700. Our kids are doing not only a bunch of local internships, but we've got internships around the country, some virtual internships with startups, just because people have become familiar with the work that we're doing. But I say this and I mean it. The career advisement program in our district is really the epicenter of our work in equity. And here's what I mean by that. If you want to change the world, you've got to start by changing the trajectory of individual students. But if you want to do it at scale, you've got to change the trajectory, in our case, of thousands of students. We share our work with anybody that wants to know about it. I would love for it to be influential in really changing the way the work is done across the nation, because I think it does work to really do that. If I can change the trajectory of an individual student, lead them in a viable career that's got growth potential for them, that pays a livable wage. You don't just change their life, you change the life of their children, you change the life of their grandchildren. And that's the generational change that I think it's going to take. So much of the issues that we've got going on in this country really are economic based. And there's a lot of embedded and deep-seated economic policy that have made it more difficult for today's kids. Any student, any young person in this country born after 1980, which is really two generations of young people now, belong to the first generation of Americans not predicted to earn more than their parents. That's a big deal. So solving for that is important. And that's not just economics, that's also race. So if we can change the trajectory of a student, that's how you get a model of how do you change the world, because we're trying to change the trajectory of every student and put them in the best position to succeed. We're measuring the thing that matters way more than ACT scores and SAT scores. And this is a research study for us. We are studying how our kids are doing after they leave us. That's the most important measurement of did we do a good job. It isn't what your SAT score is. It's how do we prepare you for life 5 years after you left high school or 10 years after you left high school. So we're really serious about that. But if we can do this right, and we've got a graphic, our mission is to really get it right for every student, and we're really trying to do that. It's work that never gets done, because you're talking about humans and trying to get them right every time, and there's just a ton of variables, but that's really the epicenter of our equity work.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's very, very impressive. So thank you for all the work you do, not only in your district, but throughout Illinois. And as you said, your willingness to share with other districts and make a larger impact as well. Dr. Ken Wallace is here with us today, and he is the superintendent at Maine 207. I highly recommend to anyone watching to follow him on Twitter. His handle is @KenWallace207. He's always sharing really, really wonderful things, not only about what's going on in the school district, but inspirational things, I think, that can also just affect your day-to-day life. So thank you so much, Ken, for being with us today.
All right. Thanks, guys. Always glad to see you. Keep up the good work.
Pleasure chatting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.